Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video, and this will be the build video for the Skyline Rampage, which as you can see here is a vertical arm frame. So let's just real quick go over all the build components and get right into this. Try to keep it as short as possible since I'll be doing the entire build video in just one part. There won't be three, just one part here. So just real quick, the frame, I printed these little mounts for the GoPro and the antenna tube, as well as this sort of aerodynamic cover if you're not using a GoPro on there. Just 3D printed those. The files are available for free on the site. For the motors, they are the Emax RS2306 2400 kV motors, and I already did extend the wires to go to the 4-in-1 ESC since the stock wires are too short. You just need some extra 20 gauge wire for that. For the ESC, it's the Spedix 30 amp, I believe it's the IS30 amp 4-in-1 ESC. Really good quality, that'll just fit right in there. The FPV camera is the Fox Ear Monster. This is the version 1, and now it comes with this case originally with the 2 holes, but that won't fit. But it does come with a spare case with just 1 hole, so you have to swap the sensor and lens into that. It's really easy, you just have to refocus it then. For the video transmitter, it's the FX799T 200 milliwatt there. Flight controller is the Furious FPV Radiance. I really like this because it's an F3. It's really cheap, really easy to get. Has 5 and 12 volt regulators on board. Takes full battery voltage, and it runs D-Shot 300. It's got also the Emax Pagoda 2 antenna, really cheap. Looking forward to try these out. And the Gemfan 5152 flash. So you can tell this is going to be a very red and white build, and I got some red 3mm wire sheath to go around the motor wires here, so this should be really awesome. And I also have red and white TPU on the way because this is PETG, so it is not flexible, so it's not the most ideal, but it'll work for now. So let's get right into it. Okay, so first up, let's get our motors mounted, and now the Emax motors come with 2 sets of screws. It says for 4mm arms and for 3mm arms, and since these are, I believe, 2.5 millimeter thick, these motor mount plates that they're going through, I'm going to use the 3mm ones, so make sure you choose the shorter of the 2. And these are all clockwise motors here, so we don't have to worry about clockwise threaded, so we don't have to worry about where we put them. So let's put these guys on just to screw up through and right into the motor. Okay, and if you do notice, there are, let me show you in this one, this little notch here, this slot for the motor mount is actually where the wires are. You can see it's kind of holding the motor up, but if we take a hot air gun or some kind of heat and blast that heat shrink, that'll make it loosen up, and then it'll be able to bend up a lot easier without putting stress on it. So I'm going to do that. Heat it up a decent bit here. Try not to get the motor bell because you don't want to demagnetize anything, and then just sort of bend the wires up, and that'll fit right there and all good, and then we'll zip tie these down later. Okay, and there's the last one in there. Just keep them all loose. Make sure the can look under at the bearing, line it up with the center of the hole, and then you can tighten them down in sort of a star pattern. Don't go crazy on these. You got Loctite and you're going into aluminum, but make sure you snug them up pretty decently. There we go. That looks good, and it's firmly mounted there. So let's do the other 3. Alright, there we have the 4 motors installed pretty cleanly there. So next, for the 4-in-1 ESC, we can just take off this bottom plate here. This is really nice. It only takes removing these 4 screws, and then you have full access to the ESC here, the 4-in-1, if you decide to put that under here, or anything else you put under here. And this plate will just pop off, and you can solder, and the arms will not fall out. So there we go, because they're still connected from the top part, just not as securely. And now we have access to this. So for the Spedix, I'm going to want to put the pads facing downwards, since we're looking at the bottom here. That way I can solder to it more easily here. And the way I'm going to be mounting this is with one of these nylon screws, and then just simply a washer, a little M3 nut. Just put that there like that, and that way that'll sit there, and then this will come up through. And I did have to use cutters to make these just a little bit shorter because they were too long. because I'm using these little rubber bobbins for the flight controller, and that will just screw onto that there. And then our flight controller will sit on top of there. Just, oops, let me get it the right way around. It'll just sit like that. And then we can put another nut on. It'll be fully soft mounted, and it'll keep everything nice, low, and clean. Okay, got the ESC just settled in there with that mounting method I just described. All good with the rubber standoffs up top. So before we solder these up, I'm going to add this red wire mesh sleeving on the wires here. Now this is real small, 3mm, but if you expand it out, it'll be able to fit around the wires and grip them tightly. So I'm just gonna pretty much do this off camera because it's just kind of a fiddly thing to do. Basically just put some on, put a little heat shrink on, and then, you know, just size it up to the right length, and then our wires come out the other end. Okay, it looks like quite a bit happened, but really it didn't. Just take this flight controller off here. So I just put that wire sheathing on. You can see it just looks fantastic. At least I think it does here. You can see I used the zip ties through the armholes here that they supply. I wish there was one more up here, but that might make the arm weaker. That might be why it's not there. So I just used a drop of hot glue and then just pressed the wires into it and the mesh, and that's not going anywhere because I wanted it to stay over the arm as much as possible for the least amount of air resistance. And I just brought them in here with some heat shrink on the end, and then this will explain it a little better. You can see I got the wires. There's these three from this ESC. They sort of cross over each other. Hopefully you can see that. That way it leaves less bending in there, a little bit easier for the wires. And then these will just cut and solder right under to the ESC here. And now because the ESC is upside down and we're crossing motors, the motors are going to be all out of order. This motor is motor 1, but this ESC right here is motor 3. But we can just fix that with the pinout when we solder the signals to the flight controller. All we have to do is mix the wires around. I'll show you how to do that, and we should be fine there. So let's get these ESC wires stripped and you know, soldered up to the ESC here. I want to leave a little bit of slack, but not too much. So I'm just going to trim these. And now once again, I did have to originally extend the Emax wires. They were too short. It looks, no, I think that's okay. So let me strip these and heat up my iron. Okay, I've got the wires stripped there, so let's just get these tinned, and I've got a decently large tip on my soldering iron, and I've got it turned up to 390 degrees Celsius. Now let's tin the ESC pads. Wow, those tin really easy. There we go, there's that. Now I'm going to get some pliers so I can hold these wires in place while we solder them in. Okay, and now the order of these does not matter at all. These are BL Heli S ESCs. We can just very easily change the order in the BL Heli configurator. So don't worry about which order they were coming in. That's perfect. Let's get this one all lined up. There we go. And now for the last one. I don't know what they have on these pads, but man, it is tinning and going together so nice and easily. Probably need a little bit more solder on there, but I think that's all good. And then that will just tuck right there, and then we'll do the other ones, and that looks pretty much perfect there. So I'll go ahead and finish the other three. I don't have to show you that, but that's how you do those. Alright, there is that. The ESCs are all soldered up, and it looks extremely nice and extremely clean. I'm very, very happy with that install there. So next we can go on. This does have a 5-volt out on it, but the Radiance can take full battery power anyway, so that doesn't matter. But it does have spots down here for the battery lead, which you can see I face towards the rear. These two holes are for zip ties, for stress relief for that. for an XT60 connector lead, and also the pads next to it here, I believe. Let me check the diagram real quick. Okay, so it's battery port 2, which are the square pads next to it, because these ones are rounded and this one is square. The ESC does include its own capacitor. It's a, 330 microfarad 25 volt low ESR cap here. So that's nice. So let's just add that, and should be just enough room, kind of at an angle, to squeeze it in here. Might obstruct the, no, that should be fine there. Let's get that guy in. Make sure the negative, which is on this side with the big stripe with the negative on it, goes towards the negative pad here. So it's just going to pretty much be that. I trimmed them just a tiny bit shorter just so this could sit all the way up against this here. Just like that. Perfect. Hopefully, let's see if I can get this in shot. These pads are really small, but let's just solder this on. I'm going to try and tack it in place first. Okay, there's that. Should be all good. Doesn't have any room to move there. Yeah, it's alright. I went ahead and installed a little XT60 lead. Sorry I didn't show it on camera, but you know, it's just another lead to solder. It's just you know, about 1.5 inches long here coming out the back, and there are these 2 little holes for a zip tie for stress relief. I was able to fit the 12 gauge wire right next to the cap, just close enough, and then I tightened that down so this wiggling the little bit that it can stops here, and it doesn't pull on the pads of the board right there. And I just had clear heat shrink. Unfortunately, I didn't have black. It doesn't look the greatest with that gold shining out, but it should be fine. So we are pretty much done with the bottom side here, and then we should be able to get this bottom plate back on. But I do want to obviously attach this plug for the signals for the ESCs coming out of here to go up for the flight controller. That can just wrap around there, up under, just wrap around and come up to here, and then some of them can come under over to this side since they are in each corner there. And for the receiver, I'm going to use an X4R SB here. I'm going to tuck the wires like this, and then I'm going to put it forwards, and this can actually fit in between them because there's tons of room, and then this will come up there. And I also, but before we put that on there, I'm going to power this thing off of full voltage, because that's what I normally do, because then it will step down 12 volts for the video transmitter and 5 volts for the camera. So there are 2 little pads right next to the battery lead, these round ones that give you full voltage, so I'll just run 2 small wires up from there underneath, and they'll attach to the, let's see, where is it? The BAT plus and BAT minus pads over there. So yeah, let's do that. So let's get the last wires that we need from the 4-in-1 ESC to the flight controller, which will be these 2 pads down here, which will give us full battery voltage to the FC here. So if we put a wire up, just to generally size this, over here are the battery pads, so these wires look like they're actually going to be pretty much close enough length. Alright, there's that for our 2 wires here. So let me just strip this end. There we go. Okay, so this is going on the board like this. You can just put these wires down through the hole. Make sure that's out of the way. Just fit that on. There we go. Here's our wires. And there's that. Just kind of tucked them under, triple checked your polarity, and those come up to the flight controller. But we'll be leaving this off, and there's enough slack where we can just sort of take it off here, because I will be mounting the receiver in between there. But there's that power. So lastly, on the ESC here, we have this breakout cable. And if you didn't want to do it this method, it looks like you actually could get it from here, as this end pad here is VBAT, and you could use ground from over here. But it looks like we have ground 5 volt, and then ESC 1, 2, 3, 4, and then VBAT. So I'm actually going to get rid of the ground and 5 volt and the VBAT pad or wires there, because we're already grounded and have power to the flight controller, so we only need these ESC signal wires. These to come out, and then we can route them across the board as need be. But we should be good on the bottom, so I'm going to put the bottom plate back on here, at least just temporarily, just to kind of stiffen things up again. Don't want to strip anything out because I've stripped some before, and strip screws are a pain in the you-know-what. Alright, there's that. Probably shouldn't have actually put that on because we still need to look at the ESC to see which signal wires need to go where, since it's all out of whack, since it's upside down and they're crossed. But I can still see the numbers from the side. This one is 3, 4, and 1, 2, so I guess that's okay. Okay, so if we're looking at the back, this is motor 1 right here. So if we check this, motor 1 goes to this ESC, so that goes to number 4. So we're going to take ESC number 4, gotta find it. That is this wire here, signal number 4, and we're going to connect that to the ESC pad number 1. But since this is, I'm going to be running this on D-Shot for, where's this wire going? For the radiance, it actually only runs D-Shot 300. However, you have to put it, instead of putting it on ESC1 pad, you just simply put the ESC signal number 1 on the PPM pad right next to it, and that'll enable you to run D-Shot. So that's what I'm going to do. Give it a loose fit. Once again, I'm going to flip the board off later. This will keep it a lot easier out of the way. Soldering iron tip on here, and I'll tin the PPM pad. They don't have any grounds for these, but the ESC is grounded anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem. So it's right there. Real nice and clean. So I'll just finish up the other 3, and I'll use the same method. So this motor here, for Betaflight, the motor order is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this should be number 3. So if we look down the wires, they come to this ESC. So it's number 2. So I would take the second signal wire, which is number 2 right here, and I would just simply put that to number 3 on the board and just do that with the same, and we should get all the signals lining up correctly. Alright, and there we go with all these signal wires on. Let me just get this off here. It didn't quite go how I wanted. I wanted it to be able to all the way flip over, but because of I used the power wires from this side of the board, if I would have used the VBAT and ground from the ESC pin out here to go up, it could have just flipped all the way off there, and that would have been much better. But you know, I can keep it off to the side here, and then I have enough room to fit my receiver in here, which I'm gonna do next. The receiver, it's an X4R SB. I'm going to fold the antennas back over it like this. That way I can keep them a little bit shorter, and this will kind of come like that, so they'll stick out here, and then they'll come up through this white antenna mount here in the back. But first I'm going to hook up some power to this so I can get it bound to my radio first, because after I heat shrink it down and stick it in there, it's not going to be easy to access the bind button. Okay, hooked up the receiver, which is some spare silicone, just real long, nothing complex here. Just on the pads, S-bus 5-volt ground on the farthest edge ones and closest to this little port here. And then on the flight controller, it's just the ground 5-volt and then RX2 right next to ESC pad number 3. So black, red, yellow there for using these colors. So let's just do a quick continuity check just to make sure. I've already plugged it in with the ESCs, however this was before I added any of the flight controller stuff. So let's just see if we get any shorts. Looks good there. So let's plug a battery in, see if we get lights, or see if we get smoke. There we go. That's really nice. Flight controller obviously booted up, the motors completed their tones, and we can see we have a light on the receiver, so we have power to bind. So I don't need to show you the binding, but I'll bind that and then we'll be back to cut this wire shorter and we'll clean it up and put it under the flight controller. Alright, I turned the antennas around. Instead of bending them, I just removed the little UFL connectors, spun around, and popped them down in. And you can see I have everything. I got it all bound to my radio. And I got some heat shrink here, so we should be good to heat this guy up. There we go. If you want to sort of seal off the ends while it's warm, just pinch it together a little. Careful not to burn yourself. It won't make a complete seal, there's no adhesive, but it will close the gap just a little bit more. So there we go, that's good. And then this can just sit in here. Our antennas can run out the back up through our little mount here and the top plate once we get that on. And this should, because we have the wires right here, they will just wrap straight up to the flight controller here. Alright, that's all tucked away there. The receiver, you can see it just sandwiches pretty nice. It's a little bit too big to fit in between the carbon hole, so it's kind of on a little bit of an angle, but I just put a little bit of hot glue along the carbon edge there underneath, and then the flight controller goes on and it pretty much covers that all up. So that's it for there. Now we can look to add the rest of the FPV equipment here for our Foxy or Monster camera up front, and then our FX799T transmitter in the back like that. So it's really simple. We basically need to put it together before we put this pod on because it's kind of hard. Get some of our wires. So I'm probably going to do a bunch of it off camera again because I need to sort of figure it out, and it's just kind of fiddly to do, especially on camera. But I will go over definitely what I did. But just to tell you, the where is it? Over here is 12 volts and ground on the radiance, which I will power into the video transmitter here. It comes with this really nice locking cable. You have to press the tab to get it out. So these main input leads will go to that 12 volts there, and then this screws in with a nut to the back plate right here like that. Goes in there. And then I'm going to run, this has 3 wires, video, 5 volt, and ground out, and I'll be running those 3 to the camera, which will connect to video, 5 volt, and ground on here. So real simple. And then this is the little OSD cable if you want to configure. I've already configured the camera with this thing. It's a good idea to do it beforehand, but this kind of will just tuck away inside in case you ever need that again. So let's get going. Alright, I pretty much have the sort of camera pod all done. I just mounted the VTX just through this plate here that squeezes between these, and then just use the included nut and just tighten that down, and that mounts it itself. You don't need anything else. Super secure, and that's going to put all of the stress of a crash either on the antenna or this joint here against the carbon, not against the joint of the video transmitter, so that should be perfectly safe. If anything, you're just going to break your antenna. But those are a lot cheaper than the video transmitter. So we have this cable here. I just cut them real short and just put that there. And this is a little OSD cable that I sort of balled up. And this is 12 volts that we're going to be running down to 12 volt pads here. So let me just plug the camera back in. Alright, the camera's plugged in, and I'll kind of... Actually, if I put this up here, that's going to be covered by the canopy, so that will be out of shot if you look at it from the side. Okay, just kind of squish the wires right there, and that keeps them up. And now this, I left these long enough to kind of hug along the case here to keep this open because I didn't want them like that, so that'll come down. So let's just quick fit this pod on right here. And it's going to be coming, actually I'm going to have to take this off. This one's a lot easier to remove than the camera. This here. And the camera, by the way, it just pressure fits in between these plates. There's no need to add a screw. It's plenty tight right in there. These pads. Volt positive right next to the USB cable. and then the ground negative on the other side. There we go. These are firmly in place. So now we can reconnect the video transmitter. Just plugs right in. And do another quick mock-up. And there we go. That looks pretty good actually. And this will have the cover up top, so pretty clean. So we are actually done with all the building here. The only thing I have left to do is route these antennas up through this holder here, and then add the little black tube. That'll be pretty difficult, so let me do that right now. All done with that. I'm not exactly happy with how close the props are going to be to this. I have seen pictures where if you flip this around, it comes down. They go down here next to the video transmitter below the prop line, but I kind of like them up to get better range. However, that's going to add a little bit more air resistance, but you know, I think I'll just leave it like that and test it, see how it goes, because it's out of the way of the props, but these bend, and they might bend down and hit the prop, and looks like I didn't get that one good enough. I heated up, I printed this in PETG, 3D printed it, and I heated it up when I put them in, but I guess it didn't adhere, so I will add a drop of super glue down the hole to make sure those stay. But let's just finish this. So we just need to screw in the front here. There we go, and just keep going tight, and I go till this carbon plate starts to bend just a little bit. Really secures that in there. I'm going to add, take out this standoff and add this top white cover actually, and this just has standoffs pressed into it. Heated it up. This will cover everything inside. Alright, there's that cover on, so let's put the battery slip, anti-slip pad on the bottom here that's included. Just pull that off, make sure it's clean, and then just stick it down. Alright, there's that. Plenty of room for a battery strap underneath, so I'll just leave that off for now. We can put a Skyline sticker up top. There we go, that looks pretty good. And now let's put the props on. Got these new Gem Fan Flash 51 and 52, the new Ferrari Red edition. I heard that having the red props on here adds at least 3 extra horsepower. And we are done, and holy crap, this thing looks so good. Oh my goodness, these red props are just so bright and so shiny. They actually make the wire sleeving look a little bit dull, but you know, that's okay with the white red logo, white red motors, red antenna. Oh man, this thing looks really nice. So let's actually let's get a weight on this guy. So here's the scale there. Let's see. Place your bets. Actually, let's move it over. A soldering iron might hit it. I'm actually going to guess this is definitely not the lightest build. You got heavy motors, 34-gram motors. Got the wire sleeve, and we got all these accessories, heavy props. I'm gonna guess 350 grams, which is actually quite heavy. Hopefully it's under than that. Yeah, 343. Hopefully you can see that, 343 grams. So, you know, definitely not the lightest, but I mean, these Emax motors should definitely make up for it. Now I know having more motor thrust does not make up for extra weight on your quad. Ultralight people are hating me right now, but I think it's still going to perform amazingly. And I'm very curious to see what the very much decreased drag profile with the slick top and the vertical arms makes it perform like. As well as I'm hugely interested in these motors because the Avan props, Emax Avan, made for these are coming out very soon. As well as, you know, just in general, I'm very excited to try these. So that was the end of the build video. There will be links down below to all the parts included, as well as this frame, which hopefully is off pre-order by now, but it might still be on. As there'll also be a link to my Patreon if you wish to help support the channel and you enjoy these types of videos, you find them helpful. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.